we're going to start off with the BIOS settings. Right here you see the BIOS version is 3.1.1. Now I was on 3.0.8, and since updating to the latest public version that came out, so that's 22,000.51, I did a Windows update and it updated the BIOS through Windows Update. So that's something new that I've never seen before, and kind of concerning that it did that on a developer preview, but it worked. And it's something worth noting is that BIOS updates, I guess, can be pushed through Windows Update now. And over in advanced, we can go to the SATA configuration. You can see that we are on AHCI, so we have the RAID controller off now. Fast boot is enabled, secure boot is disabled, and that's basically it. So now I'm going to load Windows 10. The boot speed tests are going to be a little bit different because I'm dual booting, so they'll be tested from the dual boot menu. So right here you can see this is Windows 11 where it says Windows 10, because that's not confusing at all. And this one here is Windows 10. So I have the stopwatch set up here, and I'm going to load Windows 10 first. Start that. So it's about 23 seconds. And like I mentioned, it's going to be a little bit different for the boot speed because it's booting from that dual boot menu. So installed just on the NVMe alone, not in RAID, a single OS, it boots in about 9 seconds. So you can see that the dual boot process is extremely slow by comparison. First thing we're going to do here is open settings, go to about, and you can see that this is 19043 Windows 10 Pro. All of the hardware specs and everything are all the same. Go to control panel and we'll look at everything installed. So we got 3D Mark, IDA64, hardware monitor, Crystal Disk Info, Crystal Disk Mark, Future Mark System Info, so that's for 3D Mark. You have Geekbench 5, and then all of the pre-installed crap, and then the latest Studio NVIDIA driver. Then down here we have OBS, and then Steam, because that's where I bought 3D Mark. So now first things first, let's get screen recording. First we'll open Crystal Disk Info, that way I can show you the NVMe's, because I'm not ambitious enough to take this laptop apart and swap them for faster ones like people suggested in the last video. But those are the two NVMe's. Those are the ones that come with the laptops. Now we will run Crystal Disk Mark. 3,518 megabyte per second read and 3,029 megabyte per second write. 5% of the drive is being used, and that's going to be going up as it's screen recording. But for the most part, I just want to show here that if we take this here, you can see that there's 49.1 gigabytes being used, and this file is currently 30 megabytes, so that basically doesn't even make a dent. So essentially 50 gigs, that's what's being used. That's how much Windows 10 takes up with the benchmark programs that I have installed. So we're screen recording, so the background tasks are going to be different. Okay, so that graph finally got all the way to the end there, so we're sitting right around 5%. It just jumped up there because I started moving stuff, so about 5% idle CPU usage. Memory is 4.1 gigabyte, and then the GPU is like 40 because we're screen recording, so that doesn't even matter. Let's go to the power profile, power options, balanced. We didn't touch anything there. We have no ASUS software installed. There's only Steam running in the background for 3D Mark, like I already mentioned. Now let's get some temperature readings. As you can see, we're idling around 55 degrees. So let's clear those, clear this, and let's open Geekbench 5. So you can see here, Windows 10 Pro. So let's run the CPU benchmark. Okay, there we go. So we got 1,225 for the single core and 7,661 for the multi-core. Now I'm not going to run this a whole bunch of times because I have other things to do, but you can see right here that we are on the balanced power plan. That's good. Be thermal throttled on 2 cores. Right here, 2% thermal throttling. Okay, so those are reset. Let's do 3D Mark. This has 6,228, which is still below average. 2% thermal throttling on 1 core. Okay, so it's still terrible. Check for updates. Okay, so everything's up to date. So that's it. Okay, The hell was that about? Why was that so fast? Okay. Why does this boot in like 4 seconds? That's weird. It's 10. No, it completely restarts when I do Windows 10. Huh. Interesting. Okay. That's wild how fast that starts. Okay. Let's do this completely out of order. Okay, got that going. All the same hardware. Windows 11, 22,000.51. Checking for updates. Background usage. Okay. CPU usage is 4%. Memory, 4.4. GPU is 50, so the idle memory and GPU usage are higher. Okay, so the screen recording is about 30 megabytes, same as before, and it's 51.3, 51.4. So it's about 2 gigabytes more. Neat. Okay, crystal disk info, same NVMe's. Crystal disk mark. So 3,357 megabyte per second read, 2,975 megabyte per second write. So that's slower. Hardware monitor and IDA64. So now Geekbench 5. Right. Power profile. It's unbalanced. So let's run Geekbench 5. Okay, so that's done. Thermal throttle, 2 cores, 11% thermal throttling, so that's worse. 1,214 on the single core and 7,216 on the multi-core. So that's worse. Interesting. So let's clear these. And now we can run 3D Mark. Okay, Time Spy. Run. I mean, already it's safe to assume that Windows 10 did better on everything except for the boot test, which is weird. So these results are completely backwards from my first ones. Weird. So we got 7,095 thermal throttled on 3 cores and 23% thermal throttle over here, but still got a better score. Okay, I don't really know what to think about these results. These are very weird. So Windows 11 boots faster. 3D Mark got a better score, but it thermal throttled more. Geekbench got a better score on Windows 10. Better read and write speeds on Windows 10. This is very conflicting. Windows 11 takes up more space, and for some reason you can see the Windows 10 drive here, but you can't see the Windows 11 drive on Windows 10. They're both Pro with BitLocker. So 3 things. One, I'm in the middle of working on a car right now. 2, I forgot to record an outro to this video. And 3, I also did a mining benchmark because a few people actually requested it. So we'll play the mining stuff right now, and then we'll go over everything at the end. Okay, so for mining, Ethereum, getting about 28.3 mega hash per second at about 94.5 watts. Okay, so I'm getting about 28.4, almost 28.5 mega hash per second. So that's like 150-ish mega hash per second faster. So it actually mines faster on Windows 11. Neat. Okay, so that was with absolutely no changes at all. And Windows 11, it mined faster. So right out of the box, studio drivers, it mines faster. But then that brings to the whole situation of how much everything actually changed as soon as I took the laptop out of RAID and I was running the OSs on each individual NVMe, where Windows 11 had a slower read and write speed. It takes up more space, about 2 gigabytes more, But it's also weird that when you're on Windows 10, you can't see the Windows 11 drive. But when you're on Windows 11, you can see the Windows 10 drive. Windows 11 had higher idle GPU and RAM usage, so there's more background usage happening. It had higher temperatures when we were running the benchmarks, and even thermal throttled more, which it got a marginally worse score on Geekbench, but again, it wiped the floor in 3D Mark, so I don't get it. And it even thermal throttled way worse that time, and still got a much better score. So I have no idea what that was about. What was with that boot time? Like 20 something seconds on Windows 10, because for some reason the laptop would shut down completely and then reboot, but then if I was booting into Windows 11, it was like 4 seconds. So something is definitely preparing Windows 11 as the first boot for some reason, and to switch to Windows 11 has to shut down and tell it to boot from the other NVMe. But like I mentioned, both operating systems on their own, from the time that I pushed the power button on a bare metal install with the RAID controller off, both of them were right about 9 seconds, so there was no improvement between either of them for the boot time. But when dual booting, for some reason, Windows 11 completely destroyed it. So, I really don't know. Windows 11 is better at mining, and it's better for 3D Mark scores. It's higher temperatures, it takes up more space, and it has higher idle background usage. Which, I mean, kind of makes sense because of all the eye candy that's been added, so it's nothing out of the ordinary that would happen. But that's basically it. The only things that I didn't do were gaming benchmarks, because a few of you asked for benchmarks with Cyberpunk, and I don't really know how to benchmark games. That's not something I've ever really done in any of my videos. And normally, when I benchmark Forza, it has a benchmark in it. So if someone wants to enlighten me in the comments on how to benchmark a game that doesn't have a built-in benchmark in it, that would be great. The only thing that I could think of is maybe you play the same section or something, try and show like reflections, shadows, different lighting, and then try and simulate the exact same results between both plays on each operating system, and then tally the frames per second manually. I really have no idea. This is something that's just completely out of my spectrum of things that I do. But I could end up doing that as a benchmark between Forza 7 and Cyberpunk, because those were 2 games that people requested, and those are 2 games that I play, so I do have them. So that is something that I could do at a later date, if you so seek it. But I don't know, I'm tired. I gotta get back to yelling at that car, but I gotta finish editing this video first. So like the video, dislike the video, that's cool, or subscribe, that's awesome too. Join the members program, or you know, like whatever. Just I don't know, I'm not telling you what to do.